Joining us now here on In the Circle on D1 Softball. She is back in her podcast. She had a historic year at Belmont, leading them to a conference championship in the Valley, getting into the NCAA tournament. She was an All-American. And guess what? She's still going to be at Belmont. As she announced earlier this week, she withdrew from the transfer portal to return for her final year at Belmont. I speak of Maya Johnson joining us here on In the Circle at D1 Softball. Hello. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you. Thanks for having me on. I was excited when you reached out.
Lots happened since we last saw.
Yeah.
So let's just start with it. Obviously, for those people who are aware, you entered the transfer portal. And then this week you announced you withdrew to go back to Belmont. Just kind of, what's it been like? Let's start with that. What has it been like for you the last month or so from the time you entered the portal to now withdrawing and deciding, hey, Belmont is the right place for me?
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, the last like month, 6 weeks or so, has been pretty stressful. I didn't realize initially when I entered the portal that it was going to be a full-time job in terms of responding to emails, texts, coordinating schedules, being on phone calls, researching schools, setting up visits, traveling. Literally a full-time job. I think the last 4 to 6 weeks, I felt like the transfer portal took over my life. So stressful to say the least. And then, especially here towards the end, when there was possibility of me getting to return back to Belmont, things happened really fast. I'm trying to also, in case that didn't work out when I was approached with it, if we couldn't figure out logistics. Obviously, I had some incredible coaches that I met through the transfer process. But when I had the academic opportunity, we were go trying to work behind the scenes to see if it would work, and it did. I was able to withdraw, and I'm going to be getting my doctorate at Belmont, which is really exciting. Yeah, great opportunity, and I'm happy with the outcome.
When did your decision come that, like, hey, you know what? I want to stay where I'm at. When did that click? When would that occur?
I mean, I had that in my head from before I entered the portal. It just didn't seem like logistically it was going to be an option. They previously had a Master's of Science in Nursing program, and unbeknownst to me, they transitioned that to the Doctor of Nursing practice. But with the model of it, I didn't know if it would work in terms of obviously undergraduate clinicals are a lot with softball season, but if at a doctoral level with clinical placements, simulations, coursework, if it was going to work with our travel schedule in the spring. So it just didn't seem logistically possible. But then I found out that they were moving to a predominantly online model for at least the first year of classes, which would work out great for my last year of eligibility. So we were like, this might be doable. Throughout the process, though, I met some really, really great coaches and had some really good schools that I looked at and that I thought would be good options. But even then, I was being presented with these incredible opportunities, and there was just a piece of my heart that hurt because Belmont is all my people that love and support me. Like Belmont is my home, and I remember like having all these great opportunities and loving it, but also I texted a couple of my teammates and stuff and was like, yeah, I really miss Belmont. Like, I know I have this incredible opportunity, but I miss Belmont. So really like the idea of coming back was always in my head. But like I said, that would just seemed like a fantasy because of the fact, I just didn't think academically it would make sense, and academics are always my priority. I know they say it's a student athlete, and I take that very personally. Student first, then athlete. So academics are going to be my number one, which is why I didn't think it would work out and why I entered in the first place. So when I was approached, it was kind of a funny way that we figured out that this was a possibility. I was texting one of my teammates, and she goes, "Well, I saw this thing about the program that you're in. I don't know where she's at recruiting wise. Like, give me permission right now, and I'll call Coach Matthews." And so they ended up talking. Coach Matthews is like, "Oh, well, I deleted that email because I just didn't think it would apply to us," referencing like the DNP program, like she got it over the summer, and then she went back and found it, and I reached out to me and was like, "Hey, this is gonna work. I think like let us do some work." And then it was like from the moment we thought it was gonna work to like the moment I had made my decision and was able to like say, "Yeah, I'm coming back." It was maybe 48 hours from like the time we were like we looked into like if it would actually truly work to like when it actually happened. It was maybe 48 hours.
nice teammate watching out for you there, right? I mean, granted, I know she's trying to find ways to keep you, but at the same time, that's really big in communication. Very important.
Uh,
Uh,
my battery mate. It's my catcher,
of
Brenna.
course, I should. Well, how should we? Of course, a catcher and a pitcher relationship always comes full circle. I love that. That is phenomenal. Well, I'm glad she's getting her praise there,
Yeah.
on there. So, what was it like? And people saw in the video on Tuesday. You come out with a video through Belmont, talking about the decision and everything. What has been the feedback like since all this came out?
It's been overwhelmingly positive, which I have to say is really, really refreshing. I kind of was preparing myself for it to go in a different direction. And you've had some of those comments like, oh, it's because of her illness, or oh, like everybody like ran out of money. People like no one wanted her. Like she was scared to test herself. So like you've had some of those comments. Like I definitely see those, and I was probably going to get negative comments regardless if I was here, even if I went to Power Four. But overwhelmingly, it's been really positive. I think there are a lot of people that are like responding and saying like, "This is incredible. You don't see this a lot. She did what was best for her. This is a win for college softball right now." There's been a very, very overwhelmingly positive response, which has been great. I mean, I didn't expect anything less from my teammates and from my support people and at Belmont and my friends here at home. But you never know what that outside people that maybe don't know the full situation are going to say.
No, you're right. It's been very well, overwhelmingly positive, and you know, I remember when you were on. I think you were on in May in the
Yeah.
podcast, and the thing that struck to me was your passion for the school and your teammates. Number one, and then number two, your academic side. That was very important to you. So I remember when it came out that you entered the portal, I was thinking, well, that's interesting from an academic standpoint. And you've highlighted this early on here in the first few minutes. Because I think people, fans, and some even media sometimes forget when players enter the portal, oh, well, it's trying to be what's the best softball situation, which is true to some extent. But there's also an academic side to this. So talk about that, because this wasn't just a softball decision for you. This is an academic decision for you. This is a life after softball decision in a lot of ways that you've come up with, you came with, that you had to make, and you made this week.
Yeah, I think in this day and age of transfer portal and NIL and rev share and World Series wins, like I think so many people are like, okay, the big factor, the only factor is softball. But even unless you go into coaching, even now with AUSL growing and having some buy-in from MLB and things like that, it is hard to have your full-time job be softball unless you're doing it in a coaching aspect. I mean, there are some that are able to do it, but it is hard. And so having other passions outside of softball is not the only thing that I love in life, which I love it and I'm very grateful for it and I wouldn't change it for anything. But having other things that I'm really passionate about, including the healthcare setting right now, it made sense to have something that was going to prepare me for life after collegiate athletics. So it made sense to look and have that be a priority when even in the portal. I mean, the schools that I was looking at, I was very intentional about having, did they have the program I wanted? Was it going to set me up for my future in terms of like getting to work in the healthcare system? Like what kind of things is it going to benefit me for career wise, not just softball wise? If they're great with softball, that's just a plus. That's just a bonus. Right. And so coming back and being in the situation where I'm going to graduate with my doctorate at 25, I'm going to get to work as an independent provider at 25. Like that's not something that many people have the opportunity to do. And especially to go straight from an undergraduate degree to a doctoral program, that's not as common anymore as it used to be. Sometimes people will take gap years and things like that. So to directly go into a doctoral program was really, really appealing for me. And that's going to set me up really well for my life long term.
I would say so. That's pretty good deal. What's been Coach Matt? What did you end up tell? What was it like when you first told Coach Matthews, "Hey, I'm coming back. If you have me back," or so, what I don't know how the conversation went, but what was that like?
Yeah, so we had a conversation like at the beginning of that like period in this past week, and I was like, yeah, like I'm feeling good, like I think this could work. But then some things like logistically were going on when we were trying to figure it out in that period, and so my confidence level shrunk. I was like 30% chance, like kind of whatever. And then I said I have to give another school decision by tomorrow. I'm gonna wait as long as possible so we can try and give these, like, from what I had said as my timeline into this other university, to see if you can logistically figure anything out, and I can figure anything out logistically. So I kind of waited that Sunday, this past Sunday, and Coach Matthews said that as the day went on and she didn't hear from me, and the day went later and later, she was getting less and less confident. So it was cool to get to call her at 8 and say, so we're doing this. I called her at like 8 p.m. and said, we're doing this. And she cried. And it was funny because her son was in the background going, don't cry, mama. Because they were like happy tears. But yeah, experience to get to call and tell her I'm excited.
I would imagine it's been because I've had both of you on. I've had her on
Yep.
earlier in the year, and I had you on, and you both have talked about how both have a special bond, special
Yep.
relationship. You came to her, and she joked when she was on how you turned her down before multiple times, and you finally
Yep.
were like able to get her to say yes, and she joked about that. But there was a bond that you two had, which probably
Yep.
made this emotional on so many levels. First, when you decided to, hey, I want to enter the portal, and coming back, how emotional was this for both of you there? I would imagine had to be a little bit, especially with all the history you both have and the success you've had together.
Yeah, so I cried when I told her I was entering the portal, and I think she was pretty upset. She cried too. We had like a really good heart-to-heart conversation, and so it was not something that I think was easy for either one of us. I remember midway through June, before we even knew that Belmont could potentially be an option, she had texted me. She has been so good to me throughout the entire transfer process. She's been vocal about still celebrating me on social media with some of the career accomplishments I've had throughout because of the softball season. And so she's been very, very good to me throughout this. And I know sometimes coaches aren't, but I think she understood that it wasn't at the time anything personal. It was very much like hey, I need to set myself up academically for my future. But she jokingly sent a text in June. She said she had reached the acceptance phase of grieving. Situation. But yeah, so it was really emotional, and I think like it was a little bit of a roller coaster, especially like I was feeling it in my heart having to leave my people, and I think she was feeling it. We had, like I said, we had a great relationship. I've spent Thanksgiving at our house before, so in college, so it's definitely a relationship where it was something that I was very sad to have to like go away from in terms of like an everyday capacity. I knew she would always be there if I needed to call or text or ever wanted to reach out to her, but like to not have to see her every day was going to be weird. So yeah, I think we're both very excited to be back and to have her be for another year. So
Speak to the culture that she's built there, because that's obviously a big part of this. Because listen, I mean, we're not going to get into this, but we know you probably had a lot of great offers out there. All right, and we'll talk about the process itself. But we know you had a lot of options there. Let's just leave it as that. But speak to the fact that you mentioned it. She was very supportive of you, even though you were leaving. And to your point, there's some coaches that wouldn't have felt that would not have been as supportive, right? And maybe there would have been some hard feelings, but that was never the case because she wanted your best interest, wanted you to be happy, and all that. And not speaking on her behalf, but I would assume that having known her for a long time, that was part of the thinking process. But speak to the culture because that's a factor in this decision. That obviously is a place that you were so happy about that you didn't want to leave.
yeah, I think like just Belmont in general, not just Coach Matthews and the softball team, but Belmont as a school and Belmont's athletic department, it's just filled with great humans. I mean, little things. I'll use this as an example. I got a text from my weights coach, my strength and conditioning coach at Belmont, and he said, "How are your lifts going?" And I said, "Oh, like it's okay. Like I took a little bit longer off because I threw so many innings this year. It's going okay." But like he's like, "Are you doing the ones from like your trainer at home?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, I didn't know if you were using Team Builder. I said, "Oh no, I just thought I lost access to that since I'm in the portal." He goes, "No, like I wanted to make sure you were set up before you landed somewhere else. Like I've been putting lifts in for you, so if you need them, they're in there." Like little things like that, where like I know they care about me as a person too, because like they have no obligation to do that for me when I was in the portal, and no, like they're not required to put lifts in or to reach out or to check on me, and like to have like even the support staff, like our weights coach, our athletic trainer, our assistant coaches both sent me really, really nice texts, and our coach Matthews did a great job hiring both Coach Kuba and Coach Kay. So it starts with the support people. And then I think just also it's really a testament to Coach Matthews and like the type of humans she's recruited into the program. I mean, they're my best friends. I think I was, and I said this in the video that I did that came out yesterday, that it's home, and I was broken when I was at Belmont. And so I was really, really hesitant in that first year to really come out of my shell and build relationships with people. But with the people that Coach Matthews brings into the program, it's really easy to form relationships with them because everybody genuinely wants the best for you. I mean, I had so much support from my teammates when I even entered the portal. Again, no one had any obligation to do that for me in terms of like being like, we're so excited for you, you're going to do amazing things. Like every single person, like they could have been mean or kind of like cut me off, and they didn't. Every single person was like, we love you, we support you, like we're excited for you. So I think that just kind of speaks to the culture that Coach Matthews has created, just and Belmont as a whole has created. I mean, our athletic department, Scott Corley, our athletic director, has done a great job hiring great humans to be all intertwined throughout our entire athletic department. So, I mean, that's one of the big reasons why I'm so excited to be back, because, like I said, they're my best friends, and they're my people, they're my family.
That's awesome to hear that. And it's interesting because, like in other sports like basketball, a lot of players sometimes enter the portal and withdraw, and it's very common. A lot of times they'll withdraw for various reasons. They try to go to the NBA draft. They don't like what they hear. Hey, I just want to go back. I'm happy here. Or maybe they didn't like the portal. They'll go back. It's just interesting. You're the highest profile player to withdraw. They're not alone, though. You're not the only player in softball. But I do think there's a message there that I think some players out there needs to learn that, hey, if you enter the portal, you know, doesn't mean you should close the door on the place you left if you were happy there, right? Like, just talk about that, because the sense I get, Belmont, you never closed the door clearly on Belmont, even though you did enter the portal.
Yeah, I think, and again, a little bit of a different circumstance because at the time I didn't think there was an academic option for me.
Sure.
So slightly different circumstance than I know some people in terms of that. But no, regardless of if I would have ended up somewhere else or I would have ended up at Belmont, like even if I went somewhere else, I was still going to talk about Belmont. That is a huge part of who I am and and my career in general. Like that's where I came from. I wouldn't have even had any opportunities if Belmont didn't give me the chance in the first place. So why would I speak negatively about somewhere or cut them off when they have given me so much and done so much for me and given me so many opportunities I would have never had otherwise. And so I think just even from a peer standpoint, not even just with the potential to withdraw and go back to your previous university, but like those are all people that have played such a big role in my life. Like, of course I still want them in my life and in my circle, like regardless of where I'm at. I was talking to Coach Matthews early in the process again before, like maybe the first week or two I was in the portal. And she had said, I'm just going to be really sad that I'm not going to be your coach every day. And I said, well, Coach Matthews, you're still going to be my coach. That doesn't change wherever I'm at. Like for 30 years down the line, when I'm married and have kids, like you're still going to be my coach. Like that doesn't change whether I'm there every day or not. Like if I graduated from the program and finished with eligibility, you're still my coach. And so, yeah, no, I think that if there are people that have treated you really well and it's a circumstance where maybe even you were exploring other opportunities and to maybe advance your softball career or something, like I don't think you should close the door on the people that are around you. And I think that if they truly love and support you, regardless of if they're maybe a little bit upset, they're going to come around. I think that like if you're confident in the program that you were at and the person and who they are as a person and what that program has said or taught its culture and its environment to be, that even if it hurts for a little bit, if you transfer because it's what's best for you, like they're still going to be there. They're still going to be there supporting you because they love you. And if you form that relationship, that's not going to change regardless of where you're at. So I think if you handle it in the right way, like it can definitely be an option. But again, I think it's circumstance to circumstance.
Now, what's interesting is this was the second time you were in the portal.
Yeah.
Just going out on a limb, you got a few more, let's just say a few more people reached out than last time. Is that describe what it was like now that you've done it twice, but describe this time around the experience, because you joked, you said it was almost like a second job,
Yeah.
with so many people reaching out, so many people you talked to. And just, in the brief time I've gotten to know you, even from the last appearance of podcasts, you're somebody that wants to do its diligence. You're not going to you're not going to take any shortcuts as far as information is concerned. You want to have every information in front of you. So just describe the process this time around for you. And maybe some of the things you've learned from this process.
Yeah. So the first time I was in the portal, I had two criteria: do they have my major, and are they going to clear me to play? So this a little bit of a different situation. And like I said, I had to do a little bit more hunting. I know I sent some emails to try and get schools to like look at me because I had no stats to go on. Like I said, I was medically redshirted at my previous university. So very different circumstance. This time, I got the notification from my compliance office that they were going to put me in the portal, and a random phone call from like some number at Lancaster, Kentucky. They never got like the official like you're in the portal like email. And so I answered it, and it was a coach, and I said, "Well, I guess I'm in the portal." And then the first 3 or 4 days, from like 7, 8 in the morning to like 11 o'clock at night, I was on the phone for like the entire day. Like there was maybe I'd like scheduled 10-minute breaks for myself, but I was on the phone or responding to texts or emails or calls nonstop for the first 3 or 4 days. And that was just like initial conversations. And so obviously through that is sometimes there's some people like depending on geography or other things that I was looking at, that you can eliminate, or like just even by initial conversations if you don't get a good vibe. But even then you want to have follow-up conversations. You want to do your research on schools. Then you have ring to try and coordinate visits, and then you're going on visits. And if they're not geographically in the same area, it makes for a busy last month. And so because I think I went on five. I think I went on 5 visits. I had narrowed it down, but it was just insane. Like someone told me it was going to be busy, but I didn't realize it was going to be as busy as it was. I mean, I was like forgetting to eat because I was like, okay, I would go from this call to this call. And like, my mom's like, do you want me to order pizza? Like just to like the house. Cause I'm like on these calls all day. And so, yeah. And I think it's because like every single call went like 30 minutes to like an hour. And so I was just constantly on the phone. And then on top of that, I'm also trying to handle it, and kind of keep it low key. Like I never made an announcement. It got leaked through the various like softball like articles and stuff on Twitter, but like I never made an announcement and stuff. I think my teammates at the time deserve better. They still do. With some of that. In fact, like they were just coming off a history making season for my school. Like there was a lot of great publicity there. They didn't need to be on social media seeing all this stuff about my transfer. And so I was also trying to like navigate all this and then also keep it silent. Like I was one of the people I think where like you didn't hear much about like, oh, she's going on visits here or there. And I did that intentionally. One, because like I was in it to make sure the school wherever I ended up was going to be the right fit for me. And I didn't want like all these other people weighing in on it, but also because like I said, out of respect for my school and university, because I did love Belmont so much at the time, like I wanted to kind of keep it quiet and just keep it low key. A little bit harder to do this time around to keep it low key than the first time. But yeah, it was just wild. I mean, it's some of the stuff too. Like I'd have schools call me and like offer money and be like, when can we get you on a visit? And they had never even introduced their name or their program. And I'm like, what is happening? So like really just a wild, wild experience. And so, yeah, it was literally a full-time job. Like I was taking days off work to like answer phone calls. It was wild. And I don't think I realized when I entered that it was going to be as crazy as it was going to be.
Yeah, it sounds like that. Give us a generic ballpark number. How many schools you either heard from or communicated with?
If you're just roughly like between all divisions and everything, like probably around 100, 120.
Oh, shit. Wow. So
Yeah.
take me through, how do you narrow it down? You mentioned you narrowed it down to 5 visits.
Yeah.
How do you narrow it all down? Are you looking at each school's like what they offer? Are you just listening? Like, how do you break it down to where like, hey, did you have predetermined places you were interested in to begin with? Like, or is it just evolve? Like, how do you narrow a list when you have so many people reaching out to you and so many people trying to get in your ear and talk to you during this time period?
Well, I think one thing I wish I would have done differently is I wish I would have had a predetermined list, because I think that would have saved me a little bit of stress just in terms of like the me being so overwhelmed with all the calls. So I wish I would have had maybe a predetermined list and done some research before, but I also like our season ended, I moved back home, and then like 2 days later I was in the portal. So it happened kind of quickly in that regard, because I also wanted to at the time give my coach an opportunity to find another pitcher in the portal, because so I was trying to give her ample time, because like I said, I care about my program and I cared about my program then too. So it kind of happened fast there. So I wish I would have had schools. I think that would have saved me some of the stress. But for me, I had like, okay, these are the like 3 or 4 majors I would be happy with. So if they have one of those 4, that's in it. Okay, what conference are they in? So like, is it going to be doable for like my family to come see me? Like, what are their resources? Like on the softball side of things, what do things look like? How do I gel with their pitching coach? Like after having a conversation with them and like what they could potentially see from film on things they want to work on, like, do I gel with this pitching coach and their pitching philosophies? Because it's not like a transfer where I have 3 years to like tweak things. And like I said, I was very successful this year. There's still things I have on my list that I want to improve on to get better. But it's not, we don't have all the time in the world to like change all these things. It's like, in this year, what can we do to get me 10, 15% better? And then before next season. And so like, am I gelling with the pitching coach? I think that's a big thing. Was their medical staff willing to work with me? I mean, for the most part, I'd say 95% of the schools I talked to had no issue. I mean, there were still a couple that their medical staff was a little hesitant or had some more questions, but once they had paperwork, they were like, you've been playing for 3 years, you're fine. But I did have some more strict criteria other than who's going to clear me to play like the first time around.
That's good criteria there. Were you able to block out the noise? You mentioned some of the noise. You didn't want stuff out. You know, the way the softball's covered now, the transfer portal, people always speculate. There's always talk on social media. You know, and it's funny because here on the show, we don't speculate on players because it's always, you don't know what's real, what's not.
Yeah.
I've learned over the years that it's always majority of the times, not all the time, but a majority of the time might be like some random travel ball coach that just wants to talk. And, it's hearsay, becomes like a phone thing and it's got kind of blown out of proportion or misled there. Were you able to block all that out during this process and how were you able to do that if you did?
Yeah, I think some of it helps because like I said, I did keep it so quiet. So like, I think outside of the coaches that I was directly talking to and like my inner circle, most people had no idea where I was even looking. And so I think that helped. So I could really go through my criteria and like go through my research and stuff on my own without a ton of extra opinions with it. But I think ultimately, like, it came to a point where like people were telling me a lot of different opinions and things like that. And so I ultimately just had to be like, okay, I know all these people care about you, but what is going to be the thing that makes you most happy and that you feel is going to be best for you? Like, that's what you're going to have to do. If I can live with my decision, like, depending on what school I choose, like, then it's no one else's problem. Like, if it's my choice, like, it's my choice. And if I feel good about it, I feel good about it. And so that's just kind of where I had to end up being, because I think everyone's going to have an opinion about it in some way, shape, or form, whether it's positive, negative, neutral. So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, great, these people have opinions, but like ultimately it comes down to me and like what I want to do. So
is there any myths or misconceptions that you've either been heard of or you've heard or whatever that you think you want to clear up from your experiences in the portal that people maybe in the public have some idea that is not accurate at all or misled by perceptions of the portal at all that stands out to you at all?
I think that there are some coaches that don't do it for the right reasons. And through this process, like I said, I've talked to a lot of coaches. But if you're genuinely like taking your time through the portal when you're going through the process, like, you're going to find the good coaches. You're going to find the coaches that are in it for the right reasons, that are going to support their athletes. And so I think you just have to be, this sounds bad, but like, these people always say, go into it open mind to it, go into it with an open mind. I say go into it and be skeptical. Like, that's probably the opposite of what a lot of people say, but you don't know, especially in this day and age with NIL, rev share, things like that. You don't know who's throwing stuff out there for money wise for it to be like a true value versus if it's legitimate, or what things are being promised to you before things are put into contracts. And you don't know what coaches have a certain sell, and then when you go there, it's different. I've talked to some other portal athletes even too, and it's like, okay, like, I was sold on this and I got on campus and it was completely different, and they were a completely different person than through the recruiting process. And like, I was lucky enough that like, for the most part, I don't think the schools I had it narrowed down to were like that. But I say, like, go into it in terms of like open mind. If a school that you maybe didn't expect to reach out, or maybe that wasn't in your mind of a school you could see yourself going to, maybe go into it open-minded there. But I would say in your conversations, like, go into it and be a little bit skeptical, because people obviously, like, I don't want to say they're doing a sales pitch, but like, these schools are doing a sales pitch as to why you should choose their school, right? And so they're going to show you all of the glitz and the glam. Like, ask the hard questions. If you have a school that had some people in the portal, if it's your position specifically, like, ask why. Like, you never know. Like it could be something that's very easily explainable. Like they could have been pursuing a different graduate degree, or they might have wanted more innings, something like that. Easy, right? But like you never actually know until you ask. So like I don't think it's unfair for you to be able to ask the coaches the hard questions, because if it's going to be the place where you're at for the next 1, 2, 3 years of your career, like it's good to ask and be prepared and to know up front. So like go into it and be skeptical of what they're selling you. And then if you're proven wrong, great, you're proven wrong and you have a great opportunity. But like I would say that's my biggest shift in terms of like what I wish I would have done throughout the process. You know what I mean?
I do, and you've got this podcast down pat, because I was going to ask you about what advice you would give any future, student athletes about the portal. But it sounds like that's great advice right there, what you just gave there. So let me ask you this instead: if I made you in have the power to tweak or change anything about the portal moving forward that you think would benefit the student athletes and maybe benefit the sport, college athletics, maybe even benefit the institute, whatever, what would you want you think needs to be tweaked, if at all, if anything at all? But having gone through this process now twice from two different, completely different ways, right? Like you've been that player that you're kind of like, hey, I need to send emails out to get my name out there to, my goodness, everybody's reaching out to me. So you've experienced both versions.
Yeah.
What do you think needs to, if anything, needs to be tweaked or fixed from this process, the portal, if at all?
I think like having been through it this time, especially being in a situation where I had had more people reaching out to me, I think that and I know they've changed our transfer windows a lot. I think they need to change our transfer windows to fully be done until after the World Series, simply because like luckily we won our conference championship. We went to regionals. Like I felt like I had no time from like, and especially because people were jumping, depending on when seasons ended and things like that. If they ended at regionals, people were jumping in the portal really early. And so being at the time, like knowing that I was going to be a little bit more of like a higher ranked recruit, I was kind of rushed to go into the portal really quickly right after the end of the season. And so I don't think I really had any time to breathe or come up for air or like even reflect on my own season. And because I was in the portal and I just like was immediately flooded. I think like I know that pushes it a little bit later into the summer, and with sometimes with grad school applications that can make it difficult. But I think that like not giving yourself any time after season to just like rest and just be was really like not helpful for me, at least. And I know there's probably a lot of other student athletes that feel the same way. I don't think that you can, and I also think that too, that evens the playing field, because you have some people that are out there because their season ended, they lost their conference tournament, like whatever, lost in regionals, that have an extra 2 or 3 weeks in the portal compared to some of your athletes that maybe end up transferring for whatever reason at the end of their season, if your team makes it to the World Series or a super regional, who wait until after to transfer. And so it's like you have a little bit of a disadvantage there, because what if someone could be a really good fit at a school, but because that school's trying to protect their program, rightfully so, right, they get a recruit that entered earlier in the portal that maybe is not as good of a fit. And so I think we just need to push the deadline back till after the World Series. I don't think that is an unreasonable thing. And I think that would, like I said, even the playing field a little bit and give all your student athletes a little bit more time to breathe after season for their mental health. Outside of that, I think that like just going into it with an understanding that like, especially people that are getting a decent amount of phone calls, like just like on both sides of it, both for me and for the coaches, like be respectful of each other's time. Like obviously like I would take phone breaks, and I think like I had a lot of coaches that were really supportive of that, because I was like, hey, sorry, it took me a couple hours to respond. Like, I just needed a phone break because I'm just so overwhelmed with having to respond on all these phone calls and these texts. So I just put my phone away for a couple hours. And so I think that there are still some coaches that like have a problem with that, which is unfortunate. They're like, are you not, like, I got some texts that were like, are you not interested? I haven't heard from you in 2 hours. And I'm like, so actually, even though it felt like a second job, like I have other things outside of the transfer portal, with my family and my grandparents coming up and summer jobs and stuff like that. So just having some understanding that just because maybe a recruit or an athlete in the portal isn't responding to you as quickly as you want, that doesn't mean we're not interested. Especially like if you get flooded like I did, it's hard to keep up with all of it. And for your own mental health, like sometimes you just need a break. So I put my phone away. I know there's other athletes that probably did. So just having a little bit more understanding in that, I think would help the entire transfer process in general.
I think that's good stuff. I agree with that. That, for the record, because I've covered other sports, but college basketball has had the same problem where their portal opens during the NCAA tournament, which is kind of wild. Like I think it's right after the Selection Sunday or something to that extent. And I think college baseball's had similar issues. It's up when I always hear the excuse, well, the reason it's because of the semesters and everything, but I really don't know how that applies to softball considering it's May. Like, I guess maybe summer semesters if you want to point to that, but I agree with you. I don't understand why that should be open during the postseason. I think after the World Series makes a ton of sense, and I don't. Yeah, hopefully that changes. I think that's a very, very good suggestion.
Well, and I think it impacts play. Like I know there are athletes that were still playing that entered the portal for softball, and I think how are you supposed to be fully committed to the team that you're on if your foot's already out the door? And so I think like just making it so that it's for the full end of the season, I think that just across the board benefits everybody. But maybe there's stuff behind the scenes as to why they have those when they do. So
But no, you're right. You've said that is correct. That is something that I've heard coaches talk about. It's a weird vibe now because you're in a regional, and yet there's some players that have already thinking about moving on, and it's a very weird vibe there from that standpoint. You mentioned some of a lot of the positive feedback you've gotten. I've gotten messages when your news came out. I was broadcasting, so of course. But there was a lot of mid-major people that reached out to me, and some even power forward people said, "Wow, this is good. This is actually good." Because I was starting to lose hope maybe of where college athletics was going. How does that make you feel that there's a lot of people that think this is that really feel good about it, that have no stake in this at all? Maybe you could argue that certain mid-major people might because it helps them maybe push their kid to stay and all that. But there seems to be, like I said, this is a very positive, overwhelming positive story that a lot of people feel good about. How does that make you feel hearing that?
I mean, I'm thrilled by it because I'm just speaking to my own experience, but I do think that like me deciding to go back to Belmont when I was given the opportunity to speaks to the fact that the student athlete experience still means something. I think and I think a lot of people expected me to go in the portal and just take whatever school gave me the most money. I think that was and for people that have the opportunity to set themselves up fully financially one way or another, like that's great. Like everybody has to do what's best for their own situation. So like I'm a big fan of NIL and rev share too, because it gives opportunities, especially to female athletes that maybe we didn't have before. When our pro leagues were a little bit smaller, we don't have the same opportunities overall historically to play professionally. So like I think it's great, but I think it does speak to the fact that like the student athlete experience is still important. Like being cared for and supported as a person, and like having really, really good people around you, and enjoying every day when you show up to practice, and enjoying the city you live in the school that you're at, it still means something. And it's not just a transactional situation anymore. I think that with where college athletics was heading, especially with rev share and the House settlement getting passed, things can be very transactional. And I personally did not want that to be the situation I was in. And like I said, if I would have gone to another school, the schools I had it narrowed down to, I didn't think that that's what it was going to be anyway. I think I did a really good job finding some coaches that were very genuine and wanted the best for their athletes. So I don't think even if I did decide to go to a different school, that I would have been in a situation that was transactional. But I do think it's really exciting, specifically for the mid-majors, because with rev share and NIL, it's hard for the mid-majors to compete. But I think like me going back and saying like, no, these are my people, this is my home. Like, I think it is good because it shows that when you take care of your athletes and like you recruit good people and you surround them with positive experiences, like that still means something. Like my experience playing softball, like you have to know, like when I came to Belmont, I hated softball. Hated it. Like I did not like, I wanted to play and I came through adversity, but my experience at my first institution was so negative that I hated softball and I didn't know if I would ever love it again. And so for me, the student athlete experience and my experience is the most important thing outside of my academics. And so I wanted to be in a spot where I was proud to wear my jersey when I finished my career, if I end up trying to not play professionally after this. And so, the student athlete experience means a lot to me. And I think like me going back to Belmont probably does show that like, yeah, it does still mean something. Like it's not all just transactional anymore.
Do you feel like you've lost a lot of weight off your shoulders now that you've made this decision? I mean, I get a sense in listening to you here that you had a lot on your, and rightfully so. When you have like what you said, over 100 schools reached out at one point. Calculate, you probably had a lot on your mind, a lot on your, constantly there. Was it like a weight off your shoulders once that decision was made? You knew what you were doing. Like, how do you feel? Like, How do you feel? Because I think that is a fact. That it seems like that's a lot that you've gone through. Not that anybody look, it's considering it's not like, oh my goodness, there could be worse problems to have, right? Like, I mean, health, and if your health is not good and stuff like that. But still, there is a lot you had to think about in a big decision. It feels like a big weight off your shoulders since that decision. That accurate?
Yeah, I feel so much better. I was so stressed, so stressed trying to make my decision and everything, and trying to narrow it down and do my due diligence and respect everyone's time. So I was very stressed, and like getting to know that like I get to be around my same friends, like getting to play for the school that I love. I'm smiling ear to ear. I know this is a podcast, so you're not going to be able to see this, but yeah, I can't even explain like the amount of stress that was taken off of me when I finally made the decision.
Well, I could tease you and joke with you and tell you, well, part of the problem, you added the stress yourself because of such a great year you had, becoming an All-American. And that's what I want to ask you about, because the last time you were on in May, that was something you mentioned. You admitted that was a goal. You were hopeful to become an All-American at the time. Take me through that when you found out that you were an All-American and the first All-American ever in Belmont softball history, and accomplishing a goal that you were hoping you would get.
Yeah, I was thrilled. It was a coach in the portal that told me on accident. I got like a text from a coach that was like, hey, congratulations on first team All-American, da da da, like great stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. Because like I didn't see anything on Twitter. It was before it came out officially. And so I texted Coach Matthews and she goes, oh, I didn't consider that someone else could tell you, but yeah, I found out yesterday. Congratulations. And like I said, I not only was I an All-American, like I thought like maybe I had a chance to be like third team. I ended up making first team, which I have no words for. I like 9-year-old me would be going crazy if she found that out. Like it's just like looking back, like if you would have told 9-10-year-old me that I was going to be an All-American, like I would have said, well, that's the goal, but I don't think I would have believed it. So I think like I have so much pride to be able to represent my university on that stage. And like, I think it's just a testament to like being in such a great environment that I was in to be able to perform at a high level. I talk a lot about how when you have people around you that support you, no matter your performance, it makes it easier to perform at a high level. And I think that's one of the big things at Belmont is regardless of how I did on the field, I knew I was still going to be loved and supported. And I think that's why I did perform so consistently at a high level. So I was like I said, funny way to find out, but yeah, I was absolutely thrilled seeing that come across.
Yeah, that is so like this era. Of course, you got to find out from a coach that's interested in you in the portal. Good morning. My goodness, that is hilarious. That is amusing. Hilarious. But you're right, first team All-American.
Yeah.
I don't think, like you said, you didn't even envision that. That's like, do you just stare at that? Like how long did it take you to like hit you? Does it hit you that you were a first team All-American?
I think it has, but it hasn't. I think, and this is one of the things where I think like you've had some of those comments too in terms of me going back to Belmont is I never thought that first team All-American would be doable because there is some level of Power 4 bias in terms of like, yeah, like I had some really great games against Arizona State and Purdue and Georgia Tech, but like I wasn't consistently performing at that level. Is what some people will try and say. And so I just automatically assumed I wouldn't even be up for, regardless of my stats, I wouldn't be up for first team. So I think like, I don't know, I see it and I sometimes will go back on Twitter and I'll look at it and I'll like look at the graphic and I'm like, yeah, that's real. But I still don't think it's fully set in yet. So.
Well, it's set in among other many things. And of course, we did an In the Circle award show that's coming up and you're nominated for multiple awards. Which speaks volumes to the great year you've had there. You mentioned you didn't, because of the portal, you didn't have a chance to reflect on the season you all had as a team. You won the conference tournament championship, got to the NCAAs for the first time. You played in the regionals in Tuscaloosa. Have you now? I mean, what pops in your mind when I bring all that up? I know when you were on in May, we talked about the season and you were getting ready for the regionals.
Yeah.
What do you learn from that experience in the regional? Because now I know that's going to be part of the motivation coming into your final year with this team that, hey, we now have got a taste of it. We want more than that.
Yeah. Oh, we have the goal. We want another ring. Like we will be back in the tournament this year. Like that from the moment we step on campus, like that's going to be the expectation. Like we know what it took to get there, and like I feel like the first time's always the hardest. So we know what it took to get there from this past year in terms of preparation and performance, and so like that's going to be the expectation when we go in the fall. But I think looking back on it, I'm just so incredibly proud of my team and my program. I think it's one of those things where like from the moment I stepped on campus, that had been a goal. I mean, Coach Matthews has been there, I think, 5 years now. So like slowly turning that program and building it, and to see where it was at, even from the start of my time there to now, it's really cool to see some of those goals that we had set as a program kind of come full circle. And I think like I have so much more enjoyment now, like that I can look back on it and be like, yeah, I get the chance to do it again with those girls. We're so excited for media day. They have kept our rings completely a secret. We have no idea what they look like. They want us to like open the box for the first time and see it, and like we're gonna have our rings at media day. So very excited to have that. I think all of us are looking forward to that, and I think that'll be a good reminder for us to what we're working towards redoing and repeating in the spring. So yeah, I'm so incredibly proud and filled with pride for my program. It's a great experience.
That's pretty good. Can't wait. The rings. Yeah, I got to see what the sizes of those are going to be
I,
like.
I'm so excited.
I'm curious as a team seeing what Liberty did, knocking off Texas A&M in that regional, getting to a super regional. Is that a little inspirational? Is that a little like, hey, if they could do that, we could do that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we found out this year from the regional that we're going to learn, and I've even talked to Coach Matthews and Coach K about this going forward, is like I felt really good over the extent of the season in terms of the inning load. I was healthy this year, but I did go into the regionals at like almost 200 innings. And so I think like there was just some level of fatigue if you look at my velocity in the regional, things like that, where like I needed to be performing at my best and I just wasn't because my body was gassed. And so we kind of took that from this regional, learning to prep for this coming season in terms of like, okay, like let's be a little bit smarter innings management wise, like in terms of like maybe some like non-conf midweeks or even pre-conference stuff to cut those innings down a little bit. So I'm going into postseason a little bit fresher, and we can have the opportunity to knock off someone like Texas A&M as a mid-major. Like I think it's doable for our program for sure, but I think like there was just some things just in terms of like overall management and how we approach the season that maybe we learned that we didn't realize initially, that like because I didn't even realize during the season I was throwing as many innings as I did until I was at the end of the season. I was like, man, my body feels tired. But it was one of those things where I think we learned from it, and I think we're going to be prepared to go into postseason this year and at the best version of ourselves. And so I think we definitely have the ability to compete at a regional final, get to a super regional. I think that's not out of the question at all.
Is that like a challenge physically or mentally? I mean, like, because I know there's pitchers that I've talked to that don't want to know how many innings they've thrown because that can get in their heads if they've thrown a lot of innings. Did you feel it physically, mentally? How does that kind of, what did you learn about yourself from that standpoint?
No, I think mentally I was fine with it being as high as it was. Like I said, over the course of the season, I felt really good until I didn't. And I think like in terms of my preparation, I did a really good job to be able to handle the innings. I mean, I was pitching very well throughout the entirety of the season while having such a high innings load, and that's fine. Like I had prepped for that, I prepared for it, I was recovering really well. So I don't think mentally that was taxing for me at all. I think physically is definitely where it caught up to me. Like even going into the regional, like obviously those scores were a little bit higher than what I wanted. A 5-0 loss to Virginia Tech is no shame, but like I know that it could have been a win or even like a 1 or 2-0 loss with a couple things here or there, a little bit more velocity, a little bit fresher. Like I don't think at all that's out of the question. But I think in that terms, I just really felt it physically. Like my body felt heavy, and it's just like I knew my velocity was down. And when you're throwing a rise ball specifically, especially to like a home run team, when you're throwing a rise ball at 61 versus a rise ball at 65, the cut's going to be different. It's going to be easier to hit. And so it was one of those things where it's going to be more of a physical challenge, I think, than mental. Like mentally, I still think I can get people out. I mean, there was a couple innings against Virginia Tech. I struck out the side on drop balls and things like that. So it's not like I can't do it when I'm fatigued. I think it's just like trying to get the most out of my body to be as effective as I can. It's the physical challenge there for sure.
That's interesting. That's good, astute there. That you learned that. You and Coach Matthews learned that during the year. As you went through this process in the portal, did you learn something about yourself, just as a pitcher? Because I'm sure when you talked to the coaches that you did, and maybe even some pitching coaches maybe that you talked to. I'm sure you talked about your own game and what they saw in you. Did you learn some things here that you're going to have in the back of your mind going into this year?
Well, the great news is after the season, I always write down the things that I want to execute better or things I want to improve on. And I was so validated because most of these coaches had the exact same things written down that I wanted to do. And I think, like I said, that was one of the things. The off-season work is what I think made me so successful this year because I was very, very specific on the things I wanted to execute better throughout this off-season for this past season. And so seeing how well that worked for me this year, knowing that a lot of these coaches that I had talked to through the process had very, very similar ideas for things that they wanted to work on this fall as to what I reflected on wanting to work on for this coming fall was really validating and made me feel like, okay, great, I'm on the right track. Like no matter where I go, all these coaches are kind of seeing the same stuff. Like we're good. Like I'm on the right track in terms of like my development and what I want to do. So that was really validating.
Ooh, you got a list. Okay. Next time we get you on, we may have to see how the list is going then. That's interesting. I like that. You have a list going on there. All right, let me let you go on this. You've been so kind. What message you want to give out there to softball people, maybe either mid-major fans, Belmont fans, whoever you want to? What message do you want to give out there to people that are listening to this?
I think it's just like doing what's best for you. I think like, especially in this day and age, like with transfer process and picking your school, even the first time you go through the process when you're in high school, it's like, you're going to have a lot of people that have opinions that either are unwarranted because it's someone that doesn't know you and doesn't know your situation, or they're going to be warranted because they care about you. But like ultimately, if you know something's going to make you happiest at the end of the day, like go with your gut. All right. If you can live with your decision, go with your gut, and also know that like money's great, but like money isn't the only factor. So if you're not going to be in a situation where you're happy, like don't make a decision just off that. I got that piece of advice from someone throughout this process was that like, you know, like money's great, but like if that's not the thing that's going to make you the most happy, like go with what's going to make you happy. So trust yourself, trust your gut, and do what makes you happy because ultimately it's your life and it's your decisions. So
That's pretty good advice. I might take that up myself there. Are you going to allow yourself to at least enjoy the rest of the summer here? Or are you back to work? Like, what's next now? What's up for you next?
I took 3 weeks off after the season ended from pitching and 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks off from lifting. So like I did 2.5 weeks of nothing and then took an extra week off from pitching. So I'm back in the gym. I'm back throwing. It's time to get to work. Like I said, I got stuff I have to do and things I gotta tweak before next season. So we're already back and ready. So
Are you doing classes this summer?
no,
No
luckily I don't have.
classes. Okay. Do you pick that up in the fall? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, listen. I appreciate you doing this. Congratulations. Like I said, I know it was a big decision, a big process, but like I'm just happy you're happy, and I think that's the most important thing. And I think that's hopefully people that listen to this get that message that you got to do what makes you happy. That sometimes it's not everything you think it is out there. And I think clearly you've inspired a lot of people based on the feedback that you've gotten and the feedback I've gotten. So congrats on that. I'm sure we will revisit with you at some point next season once you have some time off. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of the summer. And again, congratulations. And I'm sure I'm excited. Belmont fans are excited, and I know you're excited. But thanks for taking the time and telling your story that I think will help a lot of people out there here on In the Circle on D1 Softball.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You've been really good to me, both even the last time and now. So I appreciate you having me, and it was good to talk.